स्वागत है आप सबका चर्चा इन ब्लैक होल में। और इस पॉडकास्ट में मितेश और मैंने मिलकर बात की है अभिषेक पुनिया से। अब अगर तुम अभिषेक पुनिया को नहीं जानते तो तुम्हें ट्विटर पे जाके उनके थ्रेड्स पढ़ने चाहिए, जो कि बहुत ही लाजवाब है। ठीक है। अब वैसे तो हम उनके मार्केटिंग करियर और कंसल्टिंग करियर के बारे में बात करने वाले थे, लेकिन मेरे को पहले ये जानना था कि उनको दुबई में 13,000 फीट से कूदने की क्या ज़रूरत पड़ी। और जब हम वो बात करने लग गए तो हमें बात करनी पड़ी कि उनको ट्रैवलिंग का बहुत शौक है। और उसके बाद हमें उन्होंने समझाया कि कैसे इंडिया में हर जगह ही तुम्हें कुछ ना कुछ डिफरेंसेस दिखते हैं। और उसके बाद हमें पता चला उनको क्रिकेट से भी बहुत ज़्यादा प्यार है।
Hmm. And uske baad we also covered his actual career, which was in marketing and consultant, and how he is consulting startups, or even he's helping creators in investment. And a very interesting point was when he explained ki marketing is different in every country and how it's different. For example, Dubai has a lot of radio marketing, so many pata thi. And if you are young, if you are in 20s, or starting a career, he has a lot to say about career paths and journeys in general. So we like that bit also. So overall, it was a very nice conversation. I liked Abhishek Punamia. I think we'll call him again. But for now, you can watch this podcast and enjoy it. हमें तो मजा आया.
और अगर तुम्हें मज़ा आया तो सब्सक्राइब कर लेना, क्योंकि हमें और बढ़िया गेस्ट को बुलाना है। और तुम
Yes.
सब्सक्राइब करोगे तभी हम और बढ़िया गेस्ट को बुला पाएंगे। सो
Yes.
या
Enjoy.
थैंक्स फॉर डूइंग दिस अभिषेक। एंड before I get into this, like your whole career thing, what have things you have done, I would like to ask you कि why did you jump off 13,000 feet in the
Why did I jump off 13,000 feet?
Yeah, why did you
Yep.
because I was actually watching जिंदगी ना मिलेगी दोबारा some days back, and जो वो सीन आता है कि जब वो स्काई डाइव कर रहे होते हैं, मेरे को वो देख के ही मेरी हालत हो जाती है कि ये तो नहीं
Yeah.
होगा, and you did that, and how was your experience?
So, I mean, it was like, if you ask me what was going in my mind that time, I really can't recollect, right? Because it was just a memory that I will just carry forever, because it is a completely different experience. तो उस टाइम पे the enthusiasm was because कि but it's a cool thing to do, right? And how many times do you hear of someone saying कि अरे मैंने skydive किया है, right? It's scary, and it's not something that you can randomly. It's not like taking a road trip which you can feel like doing anytime and you can just get up and go. You need to be like mentally okay with it, right? And I know a lot of tough people, and I know a lot of strong people who have never dared to do or try a skydive. So I was like, मुझे ये करना है, right? And then I actually, at that time, it used to be full, especially in Jan, Feb, March. That those months, it's kind of full, and you have to pre-book. And I didn't know first time. So I went there, and they said, oh, it's only on pre-booking. Unless we have a cancellation, we can't let you in. So I sat there for 4 hours. Then I went the next day again, sat there for 4 hours, because the booking was full for like a month. And then I said, okay, I have to pre-book. Then I booked for a month later. At that time, when I went first time, my girlfriend was with me, now my wife. So we went there, it was okay. But a month later, then I went alone. I was there. They told us that there's heavy wind right now. I mean, there's a very strong wind right now, and we'll have to wait for a while. So I waited for a while, and waited for a while was 4 hours or so. Finally got my turn. I was the first guy in, and there I was super pumped, super excited, and I was not feeling scared at all. Honestly, I was not scared at all. Especially, I had this one thing in my mind, because I'm not jumping on my own. Okay, in the movies they show you that you are jumping on your own, but that's a whole, you have to do a whole course for that. Actually, it doesn't happen in like a day. You have to do an entire course, and then only if you pass the tests are you allowed to jump on your own. Otherwise, if you're doing a one-off jump, someone is going to be with you, right?
Okay.
You have to be taken by a professional who does 5-6 such jumps with different people in a day. So I was like, मतलब
ये नहीं
मिला नहीं
मिला
हो
तो मैं कहाँ मरूंगा।
ये नहीं मुझे नहीं मालूम, right? And there was this, I think she was a French girl or someone who was with me. And the great thing about this, I did the jump in Dubai. The great thing about the jump is there's one person behind you, like whom you are basically connected to, right? But one person jumps in the reverse, and that person has a camera on the head,
Yeah.
right? And the remote to that camera is in the person's mouth, right? Okay, so there's two things happening. One is a video is constantly getting recorded, okay?
Okay.
And then she's also also clicking pictures. Okay, and that's happening through one small thing is going into her mouth, and she chews or she does something in her mouth, and that moment is also captured as a photo, and that person is jumping backwards.
Wow.
And constantly around you, that person has this whole thing to ensure that she's around you. And because it is Dubai and there's a Palm Jumeirah down, she'll take one
Yeah.
shot from like right with you with Palm Jumeirah in the background and others around you and all. And you're told constantly before you got on that you have to keep smiling, look at the camera, do whatever you need to do. All that is trained. You're told all that. Now the thing was when you I was all completely normal. I was excited. Everything is fine. And in one flight, it's a very small flight actually. I think they take about 6 people. That's how I remember it. 6 people, but because it is each person has 2 people, one in the back and one as the camera person. So it's 18 people. And then the flight on one side has literally no door. It's like a curtain almost, right? And there are 3 lights there. There's red, green, and yellow. So after a certain height, it turns green, and then the first group jumps, and then the next group, and then I was fine even till then, like till other people started jumping. But then I got like they take you to the edge, and we are trained that when you're standing at the edge, you look up, and then you hold the harness. This is supposed to be your position. This is basically so that the person behind you has more control. You're looking down and all, your weight is center of gravity shifting, and that person might not be able to control it. So I got there. That's when you really feel it. Like that one moment, matlab, you feel all the skills that you get, all those come at that moment. Now the thing was, I got there, and I'm trying to calm myself and saying it's okay. But the thing was, even before I could realize what was happening, these 2 people have done 3, 2, 1 and then jumped off, right? Before I could realize what's happening, I was gone, right? And then I think it's scary for like the first 10 seconds are like you'll really feel it, but after that you don't feel like you're falling. It's like you're floating in the air. It's like you don't feel like you're going down. You just feel like you are just floating around, and the view is phenomenal. Like it's unbelievable. And because you're at such a height, even after you drop a while, there's no change in scenery, right? So there's no visible change in you actually going down. So you don't feel like you're falling, and because of the wind and everything else, and because there's a camera person, you're smiling and doing all those gimmicks. It's amazing. But the great thing about doing it in Dubai is you see the Palm Jumeirah, you see the ocean, and then you see the desert. So that view is superb. I think it's the only place in the world for a skydive which has that kind of a view, where you see both ocean and the desert side by side from that bird's eye view. And you free fall for 1 minute, for 60 seconds. 1 minute is a lot, huh? By the way, when a lot, you free fall for 1 minute. And again, that also I think is possible only in Dubai, because Dubai has this privilege of having very less cloud cover most times. So you can go to a higher than
Extreme
most
height. Oh, high.
heights.
Okay.
So you do a 1 minute free fall, and then there's a 1 minute parachute movement that you do, and then you come down. And even before you land, that camera person would have landed and is already ready down, to record your landing.
Reactions.
Reactions are already done above, because you get in front of the, but yeah. So it is. I mean, one of a kind. Like I'd love to do it again. Actually,
You mentioned it was the part of your bucket list. Like, is there anything else you are like wacky you are going to do?
I have a lot of things in my bucket list. I think I have 200 plus things on my bucket list, and none of them relate to work.
Well, that's the best part.
So a lot of things. If I have to generalize them, I really literally want to go to every district in India by road, and I want to visit 100 countries in my life. But when I say visit, I don't want to just land there and move on. Like I don't want to do a 2-day or a 3-day trip and move on. So last few years we've done a lot of road trips in India, and we usually do like very long road trips. Like we go for a month or 2 months. I mean, we are just there, and then we move around internally, or we go, and then because of this, the privilege of work from home, I can manage both. So yeah, so we do a lot of road trips. Bucket list is, I think, 99% about travel. It's just about travel. There's no money targets. There's no designation targets. It's just, I think it's more of a memory targets, right? I just want to experience it because of what I've read or what I've understood about various parts of the world. Literally, I mean, I lived and worked in Dubai actually for 3 years. My team, there were people from 12 countries,
Mhm.
and we were doing the event in 5 Asian countries, and we
Mhm.
had athletes from 40 countries. The more I interacted with these people, the more I realized how different we all are in various ways. Even in the way work is done is very different from country to country. Like the Spanish who are completely different from the Japanese, and we are completely different from both of them, right? And the more you interact with them, the more you realize that there's a lot to learn, lot to understand. There are a lot of good takeaways. Plus, we invariably, all of us are living in some kind of bubble, right? Whether it is uh, about social media, whether it is about the world, whether it is about travel, whether it is about our work. Honestly, I just feel we all have our bubbles. We are all living in bubbles, right? Now, beyond the bubble, there's always something that you don't know.
Mhm.
It can, irrespective of who you are. Like you might be the richest guy, or you might be the most traveled guy, or you might be the biggest influencer, content creator. There is always stuff beyond your bubble that you are not aware of, right? When I went for my honeymoon with the wife to Bali, that's where it kind of kicked in a little bit. Bali has a lot of Hindu influence, okay, and there are a lot of temples in Bali. It's one of the islands which did not get in Indonesia, which did not come into the direct Islamic cultural influence, while the rest of
Mhm.
the country is Islamic. Bali somehow remained at that time at its core Hindu, and those temples are still there, but the architecture is completely different. How the priests run it is completely different. The rituals are different. I mean, it's the same religion, right? But it is celebrated and it is run in a different way in that part of the world. And again, there the other parts, right? How people talk, how people respect each other, how they treat tourists, or how the beaches are, how they built an entire ecosystem around tourism is completely different, right? So from there, it kind of got this thing into our mind, when we see it in a movie, or we see it uh, on screen, or on our phones, right, through videos. There's a certain
Mhm.
perception कि यहाँ पे जाके ये चार चीज करनी है, यही करके यहाँ पे आना है, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what everyone talks about. That's probably more related to adventure or partying or shopping, right? But there's a lot in terms of how people just are, how their culture has been.
Mhm.
Now, this culture can be in terms of their upbringing, their principles, their morals, in terms of how they treat work.
Mhm.
There are so many of these factors, right? How they treat each other, what is considered respectful and disrespectful. There are so many things, right? And that kind of seemed fascinating. So when I was in Dubai interacting with so many different people, everyone seemed so unique, right? And it kind of got me thinking, that when we go and travel, let's also try to understand what the land is like, how it has
Mhm.
become what it is today.
Mhm.
uh, and all this really goes beyond the money part, right? The countries are obviously going to, we as a country are growing, developing. We are now the fifth largest economy in the world, but there is so much within our country itself, right, which is so
Mhm.
different. Now, when I talk about, I told you that I met so many people from different countries and they were so different. But the
Mhm.
thing is, India is literally like a whole world altogether. In each
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
each state, India is like a country, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes bigger than other countries. A lot of our
Yes.
states are bigger than many European countries, right?
True,
So,
true.
uh, after the pandemic, when there was no international travel and we were doing a lot of road trips, again that thing came back to mind. Right? It's every 100 kilometers they say that there's a change in people, there's a change in landscape, there's a change in
Language.
the history, there's a change in culture, there is change in food. There's so many things within
Mm.
India. So we said that there's a lot within our country itself to explore, and surprisingly, many places that we visited in India have been at par or even better than many international destinations. We are just so fascinated by foreign destinations, especially I think from the movies from the 90s is when this whole fascination probably began, right? From
Mm.
Switzerland. We are so fascinated by everything. But I can guarantee and tell you that there are so many places in India which are at par, or if not better than, many of those countries. And it's ironic that we've named many of our places like Switzerland of India, you know, uh, France of India. It's weird, but I mean, we have enough beauty, natural and architectural, cultural in the country. There's enough to explore. I can tell you, I can spend years within India just traveling, and still, I'm sure there'll be a lot for me to go and explore. Uh, like recently, couple of months ago, we were in Sikkim for about a month, and I can tell you the Guru Dongmar Lake, for example, is you have to see it. I mean, it was on my list for a long time. Finally, managed to go there. Google it if you don't know about it. Guru Dongmar Lake. It has a certain spiritual importance also to three religions. Uh, but the beauty of the place is mind blowing, right? Like if I just show you a picture and tell you that it is from India, you will probably believe it is not in India. But it is very much a part of India and very much accessible. And we went there. It's one of the best places we've ever been to. And there are many such places, right? So, to all the people listening, watching this, traveling is great. I highly recommend it. But there's a lot to do in India. There's a lot to visit in India. There are a lot of amazing places to explore in India and to understand them. They all many states in India, especially the Northeast, are exceptionally different from the rest of the country. Go there with an open mind. Be polite. Do not litter. Maintain the sanctity of the place that you visit. Be sensitive towards nature and wildlife. That's very important part of India, and that is always going to be. Uh, and you will see places that will blow your mind. Right? So, irrespective of your budget, you can travel and pursue within it.
I'm really happy कि like I didn't ask the marketing questions first. We went through a look like whole do like even subtle differences like you told about India, like even subtle differences, like मैं पहले हरियाणा में वो दिल्ली में रह रहा था. The culture is very sort of isolated in Haryana, and it's just 100 kilometer away. It's just 100 kilometer away, and like there's a sense of community. And in Pune,
Yeah.
then again, there is sort of isolated. I went to Manali, and I came to know like they don't celebrate Dashera the same way as do. Like they have a like whole festival, and it is not
Yeah.
for like Ram or something like that. It's for the local gods. And I just asked like
Yeah.
asked the person ki, like why it's for the local gods, and he said ki, like because they are the person who like went into this, मतलब इन सारे पहाड़ों पे आके उन्होंने पूजा की, उसमें से काफ़ी लोगों ने यहाँ पे काफ़ी टाइम तक तपस्या की. एंड इट्स लाइक oh that's like there is always subtle differences in every place in India.
करेक्ट. वहाँ पे वो कम्युनिटी का कल्चर इज वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग इन हिमाचल, राइट. वहाँ पे उनका देवता, मतलब देवता रेफर करते हैं. आई थिंक इट इज हर कम्युनिटी के लिए एक देवता होता है जिनको वो सबसे परम पूज्य मानते हैं. और उनका होता है. हम we've been to a few villages in Himachal, and we saw this across, right? We saw this at multiple places. They have this whole sense of celebration, and they have a special place for their devta, and there's a whole ritual that goes around celebrating their festivals in a unique way. It's absolutely amazing.
Now I think we should get back. We should get back to. So there was this one question someone asked you, like, do you still have that 10-year-old Abhishek in you somewhere? And you answered ki, like, people who are close to me, they probably see the childlike side of me, but majorly I don't think ki, like I'm anywhere like this, like anywhere I was in school basically. So
No, I don't think I'm anywhere close to my 10-year-old self at all.
How like why is that so? Like what was the difference? How
So basically,
how were you?
how was your younger self, 10-year-old? School में कैसे थे? What were you doing in school?
हाँ, फिर ये पॉडकास्ट पे बुलाओगे नहीं तुम अगली बार?
कोई बात नहीं. कोई बात नहीं.
हम वापस बुलाएंगे.
So I was, as a 10-year-old, I was heavily into sports, which I was for a large part of my career, of my life. I was a professional cricketer till I was 22, and I took up sports very very early and very young. I started playing it when I was 4 5 years old, and my entire life was revolving around cricket at the time. I used to be at the ground every morning at 5:36 from there go straight to school, from school go back straight to the ground, and I used to come back at 8:39 in the night, have food, and then study, and then go to sleep. Uh, but there were a lot of, that was my, the aspiration and the sports side of the person I was. But on the other hand, there were the environment, I think, I had around me was not a great one, if I might put it that way. It is not an ideal environment for a child to grow up. While people had good intentions, I think the way the environment was created, or the way atmosphere was around me was bad, and it reflected in many actions that I did. And I would not recommend, or would not even talk about the things that I've gone through at that time, or people around me had to go through. It was not a great time, and that also affected me mentally. And but that time I'm so young in school, and you don't know why you're doing certain things that you're doing, right? Like many people, I'm sure you must have read in books, or many times on Twitter, it is highlighted that your childhood and the traumas of your childhood have a large impact on what actions you take from time to time. I think a lot of my childhood traumas gave a lot of action and reaction at that time itself, and I ended up doing a lot of things which I'm not really proud of. And hence, I think as I grew, as I reached college and then moved ahead, I eventually became a completely different person, and which I'm glad I did. I mean, I could have easily wandered off into a very difficult or a very wrong direction. Luckily, that did not happen, because a couple of seniors, there's this senior of mine called Niranjan. He helped me out on a few things, and I was able to take a better direction. So 10-year-old self of me was hyperactive, angry all the time, extremely mischievous, took advantage of situations. While I was great at sport, and I was also always in the top 5 in class. So in that sense, there was nothing for anyone to complain about. But I'm not talking about those parts. I'm not talking about what you do in your exams or in this thing. I'm talking about as a person and as a human being. I was not a great person at the time. And it took me a long time to come out of that zone and make myself better. It is gradual process. It took me a while. I think college and after that is when I kind of realized or took a certain path, which I'm glad I did, to try and become a better human being as such. Yeah. So now the others way of looking at that question is, am I childlike, or do I behave goofy, or have a lot of fun? Do I have that sense in me? Absolutely I do. That's why I said people around me have this, know that there's a childlike aspect or this fun side of me, which people who spend a lot of time with me are able to see, and we have our own sense of fun and enjoyment and all, and at various times, right? So that was the answer. There's too much depth in that. I didn't think you would bring that up.
You mentioned like you don't like to talk about, but I would still ask you, like, did you like played with Uthappa and Virat Kohli when you was playing cricket?
Not Kohli. I got the opportunity to play with Uthappa. I got the opportunity to play with Irfan Pathan, Ishant Sharma, Dinesh Karthik, Rahul Sharma. There was a player who played for India. Raidu, Ambati Raidu was in my team, but Pragyan Oja, he was my roommate for a couple of our under-19 tournaments. Yeah, so a lot of these guys. Yeah.
You used to play for the state?
Yeah. I play for Hyderabad.
Oh, nice.
So Raidu and Oja were my teammates on many occasions.
Yeah.
Actually, there was another question, like you regret only one thing in life: you couldn't represent India.
I mean, see, like I told you, I started playing cricket when I was 4 and 5 years old, around that time, right? And from that time till the time I became an adult and as after college, there was only one purpose to life: to play cricket for India. There was no other purpose. There was single focused effort every day to just become a better cricketer. That's it. I did not go out to play with friends. I did not go out to socialize. I would not go and meet relatives because there was no time. I was either in the ground or I was in the school. And after a point in college, there was no time for anything else. This was just what I was focused to do my entire life, right? And imagine you trying something for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So from 5, assume till 22 is 17 years. So if you worked hard for 17 years, and then you're told that, or rather you realize that you've not achieved what you set out to do, right? How heartbreaking would it be?
Mm-hmm.
The way I cried that day, I never cried before. But imagine doing something for 17 years and being told ki, this was the wrong path, or you fucked up somewhere along the way, or you've reached the wrong destination, or whatever, right? It was the path did not reach where I wanted it to go. So it was difficult. It's still painful, but after doing all that, I could never go back to play cricket. Like even leisure, I do not. I don't go and play cricket in leisure also now. I follow it. I watch it. Not as much as before, but I do, yeah. Because somewhere inside there's a sportsman in me, and I understand what the uh, grind that sportsmen go through to reach the top level. Because I've also done the grind and failed at it, so I know that someone who's reached the top level, how much hard he has to work, or he or she had to work to achieve, right? So any sportsman in any sport, especially in India, if you've reached to represent the country, right? They have all my respect. I do not respect Bollywood celebrities as much, or actors, or people from other profession as much. I mean, they obviously deserve respect for what they've achieved, but I idolize and look up to sportsmen, irrespective of which sport they are from, because I know exactly what it takes to represent India, especially in a country like India, where at the lower level the support that you get is minimal. The facilities are not so great even today. At you know 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was playing, it was even worse. But even today, in many sports, do not get the due that they deserve, right? But still, we've been able to produce athletes who've gone on to win medals at the Olympics. It's a colossal achievement. Not many people realize it, and that's why it breaks my heart when people will randomly, talk negative things about people. If someone has reached the Olympics and has not won a medal there, they get a lot of flack, which I think is completely unfair, because you have no idea what that person has done to even reach there, right? How many years that person has worked, and because that, I mean, to reach the Olympics, imagine, and if you're in the final round, you're literally among 5 or 10 people in the world, right? And just to say that you could not be a part of top three is kind of, I think, too hard or too unfair on this thing. It's like saying that you're in the top 10 richest in the world, but you couldn't become the top three, so we will not like you. It's quite sad, but yeah, coming back to the point, yeah. So that's one thing that I could not complete. But all the things about life that I've learned in any capacity have been from that whole journey of me playing sport, especially team sport, over and over again in different scenarios, in different tournaments, with different coaches, with different teammates, in different conditions, in different parts of India. A lot of my lessons have come from that, and I often see a direct application of that in work, in relationships, etc. I just think about when I'm, especially at work, when I'm stuck with something and I'm not able to make a decision, I go back and think of it like in a team sport, right? If I am the captain, and if this happens in my team, what would my decision be and how would I take it? Invariably I find the answer, because in sport, irrespective of how big or small the team is, the common goal of the entire team is to win, for the team to win. The goal is never कि भाई इसके ज्यादा रन बनने चाहिए या इसके ज्यादा विकेट होने चाहिए. That is never the goal. The goal is always that the team has to win, right? So your thought process is always clear. Even the person who's not in the 11, he's sitting outside, even his goal is for the team to win, right? That is how specific the goal and the focus level is, right? But often in corporate settings, or in professional office settings, goals are often misaligned. They're often misaligned because sometimes people are thinking about, अरे मेरा impression कैसा बनेगा अगर अरे इसने मेरा he took the credit for what I did. Everyone has a different thing that they're worried about, right? No one is, the whole team is not unitedly concerned about did the team win or not, right? If we can think in that way, I'm sure every team will be much more productive and much more focused on it.
Great. Was your family supportive for the cricket thingy you were doing?
100%. They were completely supportive. My dad would take me every morning, and he would then drop me at the school bus stop, then take me again for practice in the evening. My whole family was very supportive. They always wanted me to play, and I'm always grateful for how much effort and time they gave me for that.
Can I
Great.
ask you the reason, like, why
Also,
did you left?
please.
So, I mean, after a certain point, I could still pursue and spend more years, but I felt I had reached the point where uh, I would not be able to reach the next step, or at least at that point, I felt so. Right, I reached a certain level, but the situation I was in at that time, I felt that maybe I was not good enough, or maybe I was uh, not performing at an optimum, which will take me to the next level. So I had to take a decision if I want to keep doing this for say another 4 5 years, uh, or I need to start earning money, right? Or get a job at because that's also the expectation from the son of the family that
Mm.
to bring in money. So I I I took at that point had to take the decision, and then I moved on.
It's probably the hardest decision ever to leave
Yeah,
something
and
you do it for.
it's yeah, you do something for so long, and that's why. Now the thing is, I'm one such cricketer who tried and failed, but I can tell you there are at least 5 10,000 of these people in Hyderabad alone, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
spend years on cricket and who don't make it. But one thing that, thanks to my family, they always told me that how much ever cricket you play, you have to do well in your academics. Like they really wanted me to also maintain a balance.
Mm.
They wanted me to be an all-rounder. Okay, and despite me hating it, I ensured that I did because I wanted to live up to their expectations. But all these 5 10,000 people I'm talking to you about usually don't have that because they have given up on school or college. They don't even go to school or college because their whole sole focus is to play cricket, and they spend the entire day in the ground, and that is all that they know. But when they fail, imagine there's nothing for them to go back on. I had some basic academic qualification. I had decent communication skills. I had picked up few things that I understood right from my. By the way, I'm an engineer by qualification.
Mm.
So I did all of that. So I knew that when cricket failed, I had some starting point or a sense of something that I could still try and do. But a lot of people don't have the privilege or don't have the
Mm.
opportunity because they were
Mm.
so singularly focused. So many times when people are just writing this thing on Twitter ki or on social media saying don't have a plan B. I'm sorry, it cannot work like that. It is only the very privileged who can say this, right?
Mm.
If you don't have a plan B and plan A fails, it's only the extreme people at privilege can say this because for them, plan B does not mean leading to hunger and poverty. But for many people, if there is no plan B, they might just fall into poverty too. So it's a very sad thing to say. I had even mentioned this a long time ago on some spaces where the whole topic itself was this. They said, for to be successful, don't have a plan B. Dude, I mean, I can't relate to it at all. Like if I didn't have a plan B, I don't even know what I would be doing. I would probably be courier boy or something. I don't know, uh, because I have no idea what I would do otherwise. And that is the case with a lot of people. And on any scenario, dude, you always prepare multiple scenarios, right? Even like I told you, I learn everything from cricket, right? So I'm playing a cricket match, right? I have a plan A where I'm saying that I will bowl this and I will do this. We will set this field and we will try to take wickets like this. But if that doesn't happen, you cannot be disoriented, right? You
Mm.
cannot be, "अरे, अब क्या करेंगे पता नहीं चलो देखते हैं."
Mm.
ऐसा थोड़ी ना होता है. There's always a plan B, and in some cases plan C also, because plan C, I'm sure it's not easy for everyone in life because there's so much unpredictability. But I
Mm.
think you should at least have a sense of plan B. कि अगर this doesn't go at the way we want it to go, right? There's something else that should be able to ensure that we are not sleeping at a railway station one day. You know?
Mm.
Also, it's like if you went down to that level, it's very difficult to rise up again.
Actually, see, uh, we are all very resilient human beings. At least I think in India we are all very, we have a very strong heart and mind as such. Because we've all Indians, especially the middle class or the lower class, has seen so much adversity that we are actually mentally stronger than we think that we are, right?
Hmm.
So if we go down, if we do something, work hard towards something, and then we fall, more than anything else, mentally to come back up, it's a very big challenge, right? But and at that point, considering the environments that we have in India, it is very easy to take the wrong path,
Mhm.
right? It is very easy to end up doing the wrong thing. It is very, because you are mentally not in the right state. Though you're still capable of a comeback, right? But because our support systems, our society has never taught us that failure is okay. We are never told कि अरे चल fail हो गया कोई बात नहीं. No one says that. ऐसे अरे fail हो गया क्या मतलब तू बेकार आदमी है. This whole comparison culture that lies in our society is very ingrained into this whole Indian mindset, and this mindset is across classes. Huh? This is not just lower or middle class. This is there in higher class. This is there everywhere. It is there in every office that you will go today. It is there in every society that you live in today. Every building, it is the same case. कि भाई पहले बोलते थे कि उसके मार्क्स ज्यादा है तुम्हारे कम आए हैं, अब बोलते हैं उसके पास बड़ी गाड़ी है तुम्हारे पास छोटी सी गाड़ी है, वो सीईओ बन गया तुम अभी तक मैनेजर हो. He has 2 kids now, you have not even got married. There is a constant unfortunate comparison on everything that we lead our life on today. And add to that whole thing the mirch masala of Instagram and social media, where everyone will basically show you the best part of their lives, and you are in this whole zone of FOMO. This is my new both favorite and most hated word for me, FOMO, right? Unfortunately, it is a thing of today's world, uh, but it is completely today driven by social media, right? Up, you go to YouTube, you will see 20 creators or influencers saying things, right, and mentioning how much money they've made, or they're talking about various things, and you're feeling that, oh shit, I'm late or I have not made it, and these guys have, right? So you feel like a failure without doing anything. You've just woken up and you felt like a failure today. Or you go to or you go to Instagram and you see people are traveling, they're going to Maldives, they're going to Switzerland, Greece, and whatnot, and you are here stuck in office, or still trying to figure out what to do in life that you're not sure of, and again you feel like a failure because you feel like you've not earned enough money to be able to go and travel, right? You've woken up, all that you've done is you've opened your phone and you felt like a failure, right? It is literally the most harmful thing in today's world. It's the greatest thing in today's world, but it's also one of the most harmful thing because of how our minds have been affected massively by it. There are a lot of positives, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm actually worried on many fronts. The number of people, young people, the number of 20-year-olds who DM me or message me and tell me, I'm 24 and I have still not started up. I think I'm too late. I have failed. So I tell them I'm 36. I have not started up, but I'm very happy with my life. Startup and doing things that others are doing is not a parameter for your success. It's never going to be. It should not be, right? Uh, there's one thing, this I want to tell specifically for you guys and for anyone who comes across this. Each person's journey in this world, right? Each person's journey in this world is as unique as your fingerprint. There are no two people who have the exact same journey. Even if you are twins, both of you will have different journeys. There is no question of two people having the same journey in the entire world. Your DNA might have similar markers, but your fingerprint is unique, right? Everyone has a unique fingerprint. And so is your journey. You are the only person who's walked your journey. The only person. There is no one else who's experienced things or done things the way you have at the time that you have, with the mindset that you have. There's only one person. So to compare yourself with someone else who's not even walked anywhere close to your journey is you torturing yourself mentally.
Got it.
It can only lead to something negative. There can be no positive out of feeling bad about someone else doing something that you've not been able to do. Right? It's one of the most unfortunate things of today, but we've kind of this has become a part and parcel of our everyday life. Right? We will feel FOMO every day, irrespective of what part of others' lives we look at. Right? So I'd just say, I mean, in like when a lot of people ask me, uh, at least these days, I decline a lot of projects, or I don't want to do them because I feel they will take up too much of my time, or they will, give me too much stress. Despite a lot of money, I decline it because, and I'm asked, why would you decline such a high-paying project? I'm like, I value my peace of mind more than that time stressful time that I will take up, right? Money will always come and go, right? Money there are always ways to make money, right? And if I'm making enough and I still have some time left to do everything else, I'm like the happiest and the luckiest man in the world. Now, if I would compare myself with someone else who has a net worth which is 10 times of mine, it is impossible for me to be happy, right? But where I was 5 years ago, where I was 10 years ago, right? As a 22, 23-year-old, I was helpless, jobless, mentally down, had no idea what to do in life, had a degree in which I did not understand anything, right? From there to where I am today, I would say I'm one of the luckiest people in the world, and there is nothing else that I would have done. I mean, all the mistakes I made, all the things that I learned in the last 15, 20 years is made me what I am today, and I would not have it any other way.
I was actually going to ask you, like, how did you even ended up like in mechanical engineering? Because you were playing cricket, like you were doing good at, and
It is
also
honestly
Hyderabad
parents.
is IT hub. Hyderabad is IT hub, so like probably CSE. So how mechanical?
नहीं तो parents wanted me to be an engineer, right?
Okay.
And cricket के साथ IT CSE कहाँ करेंगे नहीं करेंगे वो सब it there was a doubt, but mechanical seat was available, and I wanted the college to be close so that I could travel to practice every day easily, right? So we picked the college which is close by, and that's how I ended up. Honestly, there was no preference or anything. If I would have got a seat in electronics, I would have taken it.
So basically, your college decision was also based on cricket. कि like okay, cricket खेलने को मिलेगा.
100%, yeah. The only thing was, I mean, if you allowed me, I would have probably not done engineering. I would have probably done BCom or something. But my parents said कि engineering करना है. So I said okay. So like
Why BCom or something else?
the pressure to work to study is not as much. You're flexible on your timings and
Okay.
syllabus and all of that. Or at least उस time mindset तो ऐसा ही था कि भाई it is easier than engineering, right?
हाँ,
Engineering
BCom कर लेंगे.
मुश्किल होती है. हाँ, BCom करके मतलब अपना क्रिकेट वगैरह खेलते हैं वगैरह, right? So but parents said नहीं engineering करनी, so चलो फिर ठीक है.
I have two questions to you. One to social media, since we are talking more on social media. You write a lot of threads on Twitter. You also have a hashtag which is running ongoing. So what happened? Like, Twitter पे active ज़्यादा क्यों हो गए? When did you start writing so many of threads? And you're not acting anywhere else, not on LinkedIn, not on Instagram. Pe you have some personal photos, but nothing much. And so what is unique about Twitter that you are stuck here for so long and writing so many threads?
So I actually joined Twitter in I think 2008 or 9 वैसा कुछ. Okay. And for me it was my source of news.
Okay.
From like over a decade ago, right? When Twitter was still new, right? And that time only few influential people used to be on Twitter, right? So एक टाइम के बाद ऐसा हो गया कि any news would come out, anything would happen in today's world, it would first be on Twitter.
Okay.
If at that time there was still this whole concept of reading newspapers, right? But Twitter will give you the news before the newspaper. The newspaper will come tomorrow. But
Yeah.
I would get to know immediately, right? And I was in sport and entertainment, so things were happening around the world. I would want to know real time. So that's why I was on Twitter always, right? And I used to follow a lot of news agencies, people who are decision makers, CEOs or prime ministers, etc. Right? Because important announcements would usually come from those handles. So I was consuming content for a lot of time, and I remained a consumer, right? A lot of times, I would even randomly reply to someone, vagara, but the always the thought process was always consuming content. Uh, in 2020, about 1.5 months before the pandemic hit,
Hmm.
I had quit my job. I had a full-time job, high-paying job, very good. I was living in Bombay. There was no issue in life. Everything was great. I said, "कि अभी ये I am not enjoying my work as much. Let me take a break and let's travel." Right? And then pandemic happened, and my break became an extended break, and I couldn't even travel. Right? So I was sitting at home and then not doing anything, and that's where a lot of people became more active on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right, and there was already so much negativity in the world, so I tried to follow less people. I didn't want to have too much news. I wanted to That was, I think, the era when opinion leaders or thought leaders started coming to the front, right?
Yep.
Before that, only influential people or influential handles had something to say, which was useful, right? Today, anyone can have something useful to say, but this transition probably happened in that early COVID era, right? Because people were spending more time there, like VCs started becoming active, startup founders started becoming active. That was the time, right? So now I've slightly changed and saw started consuming content again in a different way. Uh, so that's first time it hit me कि अरे there's growth, all these people are experiencing growth, which is surprising, at least at that point, because मैंने इतने साल से देख रहा हूँ काफी लोग काफी content डाल रहे हैं, but थोड़े लोग का ही community build होता है. It is not, but that was, I think, a time which changed everything for everyone on Twitter. Then towards the end of 2020 or early 21, we were on a road trip to Gujarat. We were there for a month, and I don't know, you guys know Manish Pandey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had on the
so-
podcast.
Yeah, so we picked him up and we were together, and we were in we were in this forest called Vale of Dar, which is near Bhavnagar. We were there, and I was just sitting, and I told him, do you think I should build a personal brand on Twitter? He said, yeah, 100%. By the time, he already had a big community because he was very active from before. He had, I think, at that time, 40,000-50,000 odd people on his Twitter. So he said, then we spoke for like 10 minutes, brainstormed, and he said, okay, think about this, and I was clueless. I didn't know what to write, वगैरह. He said, no, you start, then देखते हैं वगैरह, but he gave me some points. And then after that trip, I came back and I wanted to write something on startups. उस टाइम मेरे 400-500 कुछ followers थे शायद. So I wrote something, but then I realized कि एक ट्वीट में फिट नहीं हो रहा है. I want to write a lot. And I the topic was on startups, and I couldn't fit it in 1 or 2 tweets. And then I got to know that there's a concept called threads. मतलब आप ऐसे लंबा लिख सकते हो. So that first thing I wrote, ended up writing it as a thread. The first piece of content that I wrote seriously, where I gave some thought and said, okay, this has to go to a certain audience, all of that. I still remember the topic was why startups are the best learning academies. This was the topic. Right, and it came very naturally to me because I have worked in startups. I think my entire career is in startups throughout, from the time I started working till 2019 and early 2020 when I left the job. It was always in startups. So a couple of them were funded, a couple of them failed. So I had this whole understanding of what goes on in a startup, what mistakes do people make, what founders make, how difficult or easy it is for the team. The culture is always completely different from a proper corporate or a large enterprise, right? So it was easy for me, and I wrote that. And that thread, for someone who doesn't put out any tweets or doesn't do anything else apart from consuming, suddenly took off, right? On that first thing I wrote ever, kind of, I got so much engagement that it was very motivating, right? So then I said, Arey, that time it was also the thing that I had time because I had nothing else to do. Right? I was talking to people, professional contacts used to call me for stuff, for advice, etc. But overall, there was not much to do, right? Because I had a break in my this thing. I did not want to go back to a full-time job. Also, not many people were hiring, right? Immediately after COVID, there was a whole hiring crunch also. And once you go over a certain level, the opportunities वैसे ही become smaller.
Okay.
Always, it's like a pyramid, right? The higher you go, the narrow it gets, right? So the landscape is only lesser, right? Now in that landscape again, the number of people hiring seem very less at that time, right? So the opportunities are not like many, and it is not like I was looking anyways. I was kind of comfortable. Consulting happened that time. That's when I started consulting. I mean, again, that was by chance. It came to me. Someone called me for some advice, then called me again and again, and 4 times said, "Are we are taking too much of your time. Why don't you become a consultant to us, and we'll do a monthly thing and all of that." Right? That's how it started. And then I said, "Okay, people are seeing value in what I have to say." So then that's how they hired me, and then from reference karke, that moved on. Now I keep 5 or 6 clients at any point, and consulting is what I do. So yeah, so coming back to the question, that's when I had time, and I had a lot of thoughts, and I said that I will just share what I feel I have learned from my experiences. So all that I've written has never been ke jaake ye karo because this is the right thing to do or whatever. I'm always saying कि मैंने ये किया है और मेरे साथ ये हुआ है. That is what I've learned, right? And this is the learning that I'm passing on to you. Obviously, this cannot be directly applied to everyone, but you should have this perspective. Now, simple thing. When I was in my 20s, I had no sense of investment, absolutely zero sense, because I came from a family background where, I mean, I grew up in a one-room kitchen, literally. My whole family of 4 used to live in a one-room kitchen, right? हमको time to time खाना मिल जाता था, वही बहुत बड़ी बात थी. That's all we were like. We were happy that we were getting food time to time. We were able to go to good schools. My father ensured that we got into the right schools, and we had exactly how much we needed. That's it. So my parents, etc., didn't know anything about investments. Right? The maximum that they had heard of was chit fund, जो आपस में होता था.
Yeah.
People used to get together and all of that. But that's the maximum that they had ever heard of. Everything else was, everything was too big a risk to take. Because अगर कहीं पे पैसा डाल दिया और वो पैसा डूब गया तो then हम खाएंगे क्या, उस तरह का सिनेरियो. तो घर में तो कोई सेंस था ही नहीं इन्वेस्टमेंट का, राइट? तो मैंने in my 20s, when I got into these jobs and started earning money, also I had no exposure to understanding what personal finance is, what investment is, nothing. And that time social media was not so strong in this topic, at least, right? And I did not even understand कि मैं जाके ढूंढूं भी कहाँ. At most ये होता था कि ऑफिस में किसी से पूछ लिया, और वहां पे पहले बस इतना ही समझ में आया कि एफडी क्या है. So in my entire 20s, the only investment I've done is in FD. वो भी 2 ही बार किया, वो भी मतलब मिनिमल अमाउंट का, because वो भी उसका भी आइडिया नहीं था कुछ. I had gone to Dubai, I was earning money, I did no investment. I had no sense of investment. My first investment happened after I turned 30. Okay. Till then, zero investment. All that I knew was पैसे सेव करना है. मुझे 2 ही चीज बचा था, पैसे सेव करना है और लोन नहीं लेना है. घर में वही सीन था ना कि लोन पे वो काफी स्टोरी सुनते थे कि अरे उसने लोन पे ये ले लिया, अब वो लोन रीपे नहीं कर पा रहा है तो उसको घर छोड़ना पड़ रहा है. ऐसी स्टोरी सुनने को ज्यादा मिलती थी कि मतलब कुछ भी मिसहैप हो गया, कुछ गलत हो गया, तो मतलब लोन इज लाइक अ sword which is right next to your neck at any time. तलवार लटक रही है सर पे, कभी भी कट सकती है, उस टाइप का. तो बस ये था कि लोन नहीं लेना है कभी, और दूसरी चीज पैसे बचाना है, क्योंकि पैसे बहुत मेहनत करके मिलते हैं. तो एक रुपये की कीमत बहुत ज्यादा है, इसको मैं लाइटली नहीं लूंगा. बस यही था. तो सेव करते गया और लोन नहीं लिया. अब लोन नहीं लेने में एडवांटेज ये था कि मुझे कभी कोई प्रेशर या डेट फील हुआ, राइट? कभी कोई प्रेशर ही नहीं था कि किसी को कोई पैसा देना है. सेल्फ सफिशिएंट था. सेविंग की वजह से ये था कि अगर कभी जॉब चली गई या फिर कुछ हो गया तो ऐसा सडनली मतलब प्रेशर नहीं रहेगा कि 1 महीना पैसा नहीं आया, 2 महीना पैसा नहीं. तो उस तरह से by 30s when I kind of felt little secure in life, despite having no investment, because उसका sense ही नहीं था, right? And then I started investing at 30, and even those, when I started investing, all rookie mistakes, which today I can guarantee you any 20-year-old won't make, because he's been exposed or given all this information through Twitter, through YouTube, through educational platforms which have been created by Zero the Grow, Small Case. They are literally educating the youth कि आपको पैसे के साथ कैसे, how do you look at money, right? And how do you understand? Whatever they're telling you now and you're learning now, I had no idea. So I was making all rookie mistakes, right? Made all म्यूचुअल फंड में डाला, बट आई डिड नॉट नो कि डायरेक्ट म्यूचुअल फंड क्या है, रेगुलर म्यूचुअल फंड क्या है. म्यूचुअल फंड है, उसमें डाल दिया, राइट. नाउ आई नो दैट देयर इज अ बिग डिफरेंस इन कमीशन दैट गोज आउट, राइट. आई वुड ब्लाइंडली ट्रस्ट माय बैंकर. आईसीआईसीआई बैंक में मेरा अकाउंट था, उसने बोला कि सर ये म्यूचुअल फंड अच्छा है, इसमें डाल दो. और वो आईसीआईसीआई का म्यूचुअल फंड था. मुझे लगा कि यार इसमें कमीशन वगैरह थोड़ी होता होगा. So I trusted the guy, I put it there, but he was only concerned about how much commission he was making, and I had no idea, right? So I made all these mistakes. So at 32 or 33 is when I actually realized literally 95% of everything that I've done is wrong, right? Apart from the fact that I've saved money and not got into debt, everything else that I've done is either too late or wrong, right? That's when I started an entire new course or different direction of personal finance, right? And then I made all the changes that I had to make, and then I've been investing heavily since then, right? Now, when I was in my 20s, my issues with personal finance were different, right? Now people who are in their 20s, their issues with personal finance are different, but there are still issues, right? Because personal finance by definition has to be very personal, but we don't realize. अरे उसने उधर डाला, मैं भी डालूंगा, राइट? उसने उधर दिया, मैं भी डालूंगा. अरे भाई, is your salary same as that guy? Do you save the same amount of money that guy does, right? Do you have to support your parents, or are they independent of you, right? Do you have a certain goal? Do you have a loan? Are you paying off your parents' EMIs, right? Are you looking to buy a bike next year? There are so many factors. It can never be a straightforward decision. But few things have to be understood by everyone, right? Few things you need to understand are basic terms like inflation, compounding kya hai. These things we need to understand, right? What is health insurance? Why is it important? What is term insurance? Why is it important, right? What are mutual funds? What is large cap, small cap, mid cap, hybrid, balanced advantage, US stocks fund? What is ETF? These all, if you have a sense at least to understand what are the avenues to invest, right? And then whether you seek professional advice or whether you decide to take a safe path and invest on your own in a certain way, you should have this basic knowledge before.
I was wondering how did a mechanical engineer become a business development person, a marketing person, and now you're consulting startups and brands. How did this happen? Like, why specifically these industries, not anything else?
मेरे सारे करियर में जो भी हुआ है ना, एक भी चीज प्लान्ड नहीं थी. Nothing has gone by plan. Not even one. Even what I'm doing today was never planned. I had no sense of doing this. Okay. My first job was also never planned. So I was a cricketer, I told you, right? Engineering हो गई थी. उसके बाद I played and then I decided कि नहीं करना है. Right? जोश में engineering में मैंने कोई campus placement attend ही नहीं किया. Right? Because I didn't want to go to office. I didn't want to do what everyone was doing, basically. It was Infosys, Accenture, these all reputed companies would come and hire from my college, and they would take a lot of students. I think they used to take 200-300 students from my college. But I did not even apply for campus placements. I said कि कुछ और ही करेंगे, right? And because I had the sports thing, and I just left cricket, or I said कि cricketer नहीं बनता, sports person बनता, but इसके पीछे भी तो काफी लोग इन्वॉल्व होते हैं. स्पोर्ट्स बिजनेस एक चीज है. आईपीएल इतना बड़ा हो गया है. देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स. आई वांट टू गेट इनटू दैट. That was in my mind. Then I started looking in the whole Indian scenario through people, through contacts, etc. I realized there were barely any sports management companies in the country. Very few. And all of those companies have less than 10 employees.
Okay.
By default, sports management market in India is itself very small. I mean, IPL and cricket, so you get this illusion that people looking at on the management side, very few. Right, so the opportunities were very less. So I came across this company called Global Sport, which is started by Indian player Mahesh Bhuti, and it was one of the first sports management companies in the country. He started it in early 2000s, and I got to know someone who was working there, right? And I asked for internship. वैसा एक और कंपनी था, वहाँ पे भी ट्राई किया, उन लोगों ने डिक्लाइन कर दिया था. यहाँ पे when I tried to apply, they said right now we have nothing. But a couple of months later, some opening came up. Uh, but they needed someone who could understand sport. I did not even know what the job role was, honestly. Uh, all that I knew was कि sports company है. इसमें I'm willing to do anything, right? They needed someone who can understand some sense of sport and is driven and is enthusiastic and willing to learn. And I was called for the interview. I went. I gave them a whole uh, idea of who I am, what my background is, because I had got decent education and I understood, the business side of sports a little bit. I was able to convince them that I can understand the sports side of things and the non-sports side of the same thing, right? So that's the advantage I wanted to portray. That was my selling point. And they liked it. And my job was what, my first job was selling tennis courts. There was a division to lay tennis courts in colleges, in schools, in clubs, in societies. That was my first job. I was like, I will do anything in sports. Like, if agar ye hai, to ye bhi karunga. So for about 1.5 years, I was going and selling tennis courts. Tennis courts, basketball courts, badminton courts, swimming pools. This is what I was selling. It was almost a real estate job, but with the sports angle to the whole thing. Right? You need to have a sense of what material is used, why it has to be a certain thickness, what is the layers that go into making a tennis court, all of that. And I had good English communication, so they liked that, that I could interact with people from, different types of client base. So I got that job. I got involved. That put me in the Global Sport family, and Global Sport at that point had 6-7 different divisions doing different things. Excuse me. So while I was doing my job, I always had this thing that I should contribute to the company in as many ways as possible. So I used to find ways to contribute. Right? They needed some help with some, sportsmen. I would get them the right contact. I would help them. They would need help in Hyderabad with some celebrities, etc., because they wanted to do some deal, because the Global Sport also had an entertainment division. I would go out of my way, find some contacts from school, college, and get them the contact. Aisa, I help them in different ways, or I try to contribute in as many ways as possible. And one fine day, I got a message from Mahesh Bhupati himself, who I had never spoken to before. And he said, I love the way you work. I want you to come and work with me directly in Bombay.
Wow.
And 5 days later, I was in Bombay. I had to find a place, and I was working directly with Mahesh there. Then Mahesh and the CEO, Mahesh's sister and his dad, who used to handle the finances. I was working with the entire family on various things, and because I was so enthusiastic and wanted to learn and do new things, I took on multiple things, which I did at that point didn't even realize that I was not probably capable of skilled enough to. But I said, "Okay, kuch bhi karke, I'll figure this out." I had no social life. I would even go to office on Sundays. Bombay, I knew no one. I had no friends, nothing. So I said, let me just dedicate all my time to doing as much as I possibly can, and let me just collect as much information or knowledge that I possibly can while contributing in any way possible. So then I got involved in multiple things that Mahesh was doing, and I think he liked what I was able to bring to the table. So he was happy. Then a few months later, he was coming up with this concept of this tennis league called International Premier Tennis League, which he had as an idea, and he shared it with me. I said, I want to work on this, and he said, yeah. So I became the first team member of that idea. Literally, it took us 1.5-2 years to build on the idea, create the format, reach out to players, etc., and build the whole league. It took us about 2 years to make it a reality. That's when I moved to Dubai. I was then heading operations and marketing for this league, and the league was happening in 5 countries: Japan, Singapore, Philippines, India, and the UAE. And the head office was in Dubai. So that's how I was in Dubai. 3 years I was there in Dubai. After that, I came back. The league had some issues, so it had to be put on hold. That's when I came back to India. There was a lot of uncertainty on certain things. And for about 8-10 months, I was unemployed. Or rather, we were waiting for things to change at the league, but didn't happen. And I did not want to join somewhere else uh, and have to come back. So I did not take up any other opportunities, though I got few. But what that meant is almost a year went by without me earning any money or doing anything. Actually, I tried to do a few small gigs here and there, but then uh, uh, I got the opportunity to work in celebrity merchandising and licensing. It's a new concept in India. It's a very successful and healthy concept in the US, where big celebrities have launched their own products and have been massive successful with it. In India, quite a few people have tried it, but mostly have failed. Few have worked. For example, HRX with Hrithik Roshan, it's a massive success. Being Human with Salman Khan is a massive success. But there have been, we know of these 2-3 successes, but there have been like 25 failures in India. So a company which was doing this or wanted to do this at that time got in touch. Mahesh was involved there again, so he reached out to me because I had worked with celebrities even before I went to Dubai. When I was involved in various divisions of Global Sport, I was involved with celebrities in many ways. So I knew the celebrity side of things, the sportsman, that angle. And I also had done a lot of marketing with these guys, right? And now across countries through the IPTL. So I got a marketing job there. I helped first launch Virat Kohli's 1-8 deos and fragrances. You know 1-8, right?
Yeah.
So the company I worked for had one category of that licensed, which was deos and fragrances. So I worked on that from day one from scratch, and then I launched that in India. It's now available literally everywhere, online and offline. That's where we also launched Lara Datta's RIS skincare brand. And I worked briefly on a couple of other brands, which I will not take credit for, but because I moved out before they were launched in the market, but they're out now. So that's where I got into celebrity licensing and merchandising, and that was new and different experience altogether. That was my last job. That's the one I had quit just before COVID. And then after COVID, I mean during the lockdown, like I told you, some ex-colleagues and industry friends were calling and asking me for some advice and some thoughts on a few things. Manish, I was in touch with Manish that time also. Even I had met him before, so he had some questions on a few things. So he called me and we discussed. And I said, "Bar hua." And then they said, why don't you consult with me, with us? So that's how I got my first client, and then the second client, and karke. So it happened that these clients that I started getting were either content creators or startups. This is also the era where a lot of startups really boomed, right? Everyone who was able to identify pain points and could solve it using the internet literally become a startup, right? And if they were solving the right problem, they would be able to grow. And because I had worked in startups for over a decade, there was few things that I could bring to the table. So, and each of them had a different, company culture or different mindset, right? And they would have a conversation with me, and if they feel I'll be helpful to them, they would hire me as a consultant. So that's how I started getting consulting gigs with startups and content creators. Content creators not really on their content or on their strategy, but on startup investments. I myself am an angel investor. I've done a few investments, but content creators also wanted to invest because now they have made sufficient money to have surplus, which they want to invest. And startup investing again post COVID became a really big thing because so many new angel investors emerged, and content creators also wanted to be a part of that. And for startups, it worked well because if a content creator was on board, because there is a lot of things, a lot of synergies that they can take away from the content creator in terms of the marketing, in terms of their PR, in terms of monetizing, or rather reaching out to their distribution that they've already built over a period of time. So there are a lot of synergies. But what is happening was content creators obviously have absolutely no idea how funding, investment, all of this works, right? And startup founders rather have no idea what a content creator thinks. Why is he investing? What does he want to do? what is his mindset. So you leave them both together, there's a lot of mismatch in what they're talking, right? So again, in one of the cases, the creator called me. He said, "Can you help me figure this out? If I should invest, or or what should I evaluate even?" Right. So that's how I kind of then multiple content creators reached out to me, and I helped them make some startup investments, helped them make some decisions. So now I work with a few of them in helping them invest in startups. So with content creators on that, and with startups on various things. With startups is different, right? Some are struggling in building a culture, some are struggling in the marketing, some are struggling in basically amplifying their growth phase, right? Some of the founders are struggling with personal branding. Everyone has different pain points, but end of the day, it is all going to contribute to the startup, right? So I work with each of them in a different way. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now.
Got it.
Like I said, none of this
long journey.
ever thought or planned. Yeah, long journey, but none of this was ever thought or planned. When I was doing my first job, I never thought I will go to Dubai or I will be heading a league like that. When I was there, I never thought I'll be coming back to India. When I came back after that, I never thought I will be unemployed or without earning for almost a year. At that point, I never thought I'll get into celebrity licensing or merchandising. At that point, I never thought I will quit. When I quit, I never thought I will, have to sit at home. COVID will hit. I never thought that I'll get into consulting. And again, even within consulting, I never thought I'll be working with content creators or startups in this way. And yeah, I never thought I'll be talking to you guys today. So,
you were marketing in like 5 countries. So like I think like proper marketing question would be like, what was the difference? Because you said like there are 3 things before you are like marketing something. You have to build a USP, you have to be clear about your messaging, and you have to clearly define your target audience. Like these are the basics. I think these translate in every country. But what was the difference like in each country when you were marketing?
The difference is firstly you need to understand what influences the people there. Okay. And how do they actually consume brand messages? For example, in UAE, radio is one of the most important platforms.
Whoa.
Okay. So
This is interesting.
Very
no
interesting.
marketing campaign in UAE is complete without a radio plan. Okay. People spend a lot of time in the cars, in good cars, right? There's no concept of bikes in the UAE. It's all cars. Right? And they're listening to radios. Radio, there are multiple channels, and all of them, there's a Malayalam channel in UAE, for example. Right?
Wow.
The number of Keralites there is so high in UAE, right? So there are Hindi exclusive channels in the UAE. There are English channels. They're all catering to a certain audience. So depending on what your audience, no marketing plan in UAE is complete without radio, for example. And 2, you cannot do without outdoor in the UAE. UAE billboards are 10x the size of our billboards. 10x. Okay, each billboard is that much bigger. But these have their own importance. So in those aspects, this is where India probably was 2-3 decades ago. But UAE is still strong today, right? Even when we were doing, social media was picking up, but it was not as big as how it is now. Or at that point, how big social media was in India, it wasn't so big in UAE at that point, in terms of marketing and advertising. So UAE had that kind of a mindset, right? Now Philippines was completely different altogether. Singapore was completely different because it just people are consuming messages in a different way, right? You need to identify from the local expertise that you can find as to what is a right way to meet the target audience that you have. You can define the target audience anywhere, right? But how to reach out to them is going to differ in each geography, right? In Japan, we realized that one of the players who was in this thing, Ken Ishikori, he had a big impact, right? So our whole strategy revolved around messaging through him, right? Because his fan following was strong and huge, right? And so there the strategy is completely different, right? In India, the messaging was going to be different. So independently, we had to create a marketing strategy for each. So you need to understand the pulse of the people. What are they? Where do they consume content from? Right. Secondly, what excites them? right? In UAE, at least till then, there was no celebrity culture. There was no influencer culture. Influencer culture came up in recent times, but there were no celebrities in UAE.
Mm-hmm.
RJs, radio jockeys in the UAE were the only celebrities they knew, or they were considered closest to the celebrities that they could come,
Mm-hmm.
right? But apart from that, their celebrities are the royal family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whom they will never engage with, or who will never be endorsing a brand, right? Obviously.
Mhm.
So that whole strategy itself in itself had to be unique and different.
Got it.
Crazy.
We are still not over that radio thing. Like, how is are people like still investing in like radio advertisements?
No, it's a massive part of everyone's lives,
Hmm.
right? It is. I think now social media and the whole TikTok and Instagram is kind of become more prominent, but at least till I was there till 2017,
Hmm.
and at least till then, radio was the number one platform.
Hmm. You mentioned somewhere ki like you want to build a creators academy. Like it's still in the mind, or like you have dropped the idea, or like it was a year ago. So just asking.
So it's still in the mind, but what I've realized is we are so early in the creator economy in India, uh, that that I'm still waiting for it to standardize a little bit. What I mean by standardize is there is so much variation by platform, by creator in India, right?
Hmm.
That it is very difficult to standardize it and find people who can teach stuff to potential creators.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, what I mean by that is, now you take Manish Pandey for example.
Hmm.
He is literally India's number one YouTube expert, who's
Hmm.
not from YouTube.
Hmm.
Okay, but he's only one. Right? I'm not able to find a second Manish Pandey in the country. Trust me, I've tried. I've spoken to a lot of content creators. They can tell you how they've made their following, or how they made build their community, and how they've grown their community. Right? But the thing is, someone has done exactly the opposite and still managed the same thing.
Mhm.
The underlying principles of consistency, simplicity, right? These are all standard, right?
Hmm.
But to really create an academy, I will literally need more experts or more people who have studied content from across platforms, across channels, and then create an entire, content or other course which can apply to someone who's never done anything before in this area,
Hmm.
right? And that's more difficult than it sounds. Because what I've realized is, uh, see, Instagram reels, completely different strategy and mindset, right? uh, YouTube, completely different mindset and strategy. Even within YouTube, a Bhuvan Bam will have a completely different strategy from a Ranveer Alabhadia,
Hmm.
right? Because they
Mhm.
both of them are creating their own communities, right? In between, now you add Tanmay Bhatt, for example. He's taken a different route, right? For him, Discord is very important, right? And he has a big role. Discord has a big role to play for him
Hmm.
in that, right? A financial creator will have something else, right? Finance with Sharan. Sharan Negde has done a tremendous job. He's probably the first one who gave such a twist to finance and made it what it is today in terms of consumption on Instagram. And
Hmm.
we would have never thought we would be consuming financial gyan through Instagram reels, right?
Hmm.
But he set such a good precedent that a lot of people are following him or have taken inspiration from him and have become influential creators on Instagram, right?
Mhm.
Uh, now now you see all of this, right? Do you see a pattern? I don't see a pattern beyond the basic underlying principles.
Hmm. Got it.
Ankur
Mhm.
Warikoo had
Got it.
a completely different strategy, right?
Hmm.
Ankur Warikoo is I think used all his experience to run a YouTube channel like a proper corporate or like a proper startup, right? But because he had all of that experience behind him, from the moment he said, "I'm going to do it in a certain way," he had it organized and professionalized to the T from day one,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
He
Mhm.
hired interns. He gave each of them one job. They all had to do their thing like and make it work like clockwork. He has a specific schedule for everything, right? He hires experts from time to time for various parts, and takes their inputs, right? He experiments. He has a data analyst. He's one of the few YouTubers or content creators in India who has a data analyst who's just looking at data and deriving results out of it, or learnings from it to apply into the subsequent week videos, right? That is the very professional way of doing it, and hence his growth has been phenomenal for that reason, because he's taken a different route to it altogether. Now you compare this with any other creator that we know to be a category, has not done any of this and still built an audience. So there is no right or wrong here, right? There are multiple ways of doing the same thing. And I think because algorithms also change so much, because platforms are themselves evolving. YouTube now has YouTube Shorts, for example. Instagram became heavy on Reels only after TikTok was banned in India, right? All these things are constantly happening to another level. So hence that plan is kind of on a hold right now. But it is good to see that people like Nas Daily, he's launched an entire creator academy, which is great. He considering the exposure or the experience that he's built over across countries, right? And his team is also from different countries. He's able to have a very global perspective on content creation. And hence he's been able to bring some experts together from different countries, put their minds together and create an entire course along with his experience, because he's been a creator himself for longer than creator economy. He's probably been popular in India. He's been making videos longer than that, if I'm not wrong, right? So it's good to see that he's launched an academy, and it can only help build the creator economy from here on.
अगर मुझे summarize करना हो तो basically you're saying कि like it's a very broad category. Content creator is a very broad category to play with. और उसके अगर हम इसको अगर थोड़ा सा साइलोस में भी बांटना चाहिए कि ओके हाउ टू बिकम अ फाइनेंस क्रिएटर, हाउ टू बिकम अ सेल्फ हेल्प क्रिएटर, अगर उस साइलोस में भी बांटे
एक दो तीन कॉमन चीज है, राइट? इररेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ प्लेटफॉर्म, इररेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ which category you want to talk about or which category you want to create content in, and irrespective of age, there are few things which are always going to be consistent among all of these, right? One is the value that you give to your audience through your content. This is number one. It has to have certain level of value. Now the value can be in terms of entertainment, in terms of say comedy, or it can be in terms of growth, or teaching them things that they were not aware of or were confused about
information,
right? That is where financial creators have become important for us. That's what the value in your content. Number two, delivery of content. आप वैल्यू दे रहे हो बट इसको बोल कैसे रहे हो, हाउ आर यू डिलीवरिंग इट, राइट? अगेन एग्जांपल ऑफ शरण हेगड़े, राइट? He was delivering very serious stuff in a very enjoyable way, right? So it was easy to consume and in less than 1 minute. In 60 seconds you are getting good gyan, right? Now some people on Twitter are doing it through text. That's why I found it easier, because I'm still not very comfortable in front of a camera. So text was easy for me, right? So I was able to put text. So you asked me why Twitter, so that was the reason. So for me Twitter was easier and more comfortable, but for Sharan obviously Instagram is more comfortable, right? For a Bhuvan Bam, YouTube is more comfortable because his videos are have a certain duration and length, and there's a whole different mindset and strategy to his content, right? So first one was value, second was delivery. How will you deliver value? Right? It has to be something. Today it has to be unique. 4 years ago, even if it was average, you would still get noticed, because there were not so many people giving that same level of value or gyan or content of that level. But today there are 1,000 new creators every day, right? So if you have to stand out, one of these two has to be unique. Either your value proposition has to be unique, or your delivery of value has to be unique. One of these two has to be unique for today for you to stand out. Third thing is consistency. आपको consistent तो रहना ही पड़ेगा, आप कोई भी platform ले लो. Like I have not been very consistent on Twitter last 6-8 months, because on the work side I've just been spending more time and on my travel, right? Ever since COVID has become a little bit of history and these things have opened up, my priorities have completely changed. But what that has meant is my Twitter reach has gone like down to another level, and I completely understand that. Now for me to come back, I'll have to be really consistent, right? But the consistency is a underlying principle on all platforms, irrespective of where you're starting. If you're in your phase 1, you have to be consistent, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, जहाँ पे भी हो, right? हाँ, ये अलग बात है कि अगर आपने बहुत strong, बहुत बड़ी audience build कर ली है, right? And then you say कि I want to take a 1-2 months break, it is okay. Your team can just repurpose some of the old content and put it out there, and people are still fine because they are still in consuming content because they are already very aligned and attached with you, right? They've kind of become your almost permanent audience. So consistency, okay. What else? These three, I would say, are the most important aspects for me, and this is irrespective of platform and irrespective of which category you want to talk about or you want to create content in. I'll just repeat: value that you will provide to your audience,
Delivery.
how you deliver the value, the delivery of the value, and third is consistency.
Got it.
Obviously each of these has a much more within it, right? But this is where it has to go. There are credibility is one important factor. Through one of these you have to build credibility, right? Why should someone listen to you when you are talking about finance?
Got it.
तो या तो आप कोई qualified आदमी हो finance के लिए बात करने में, right? Or you have done certain things through your life and through that experience you are able to talk about finance, right? One of these credible factors has to be there, which will make people take you more seriously.
Got it.
This actually becomes even more important on platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn. When people will first see कि ये आदमी है कौन, who are you, and why are you giving me ज्ञान, right? So that's probably the fourth point, but that you can build through the first 3 points. The value that you deliver and how you deliver.
I think we have to end it up here because it's 4:30 already. And we had a lot of questions. We still have a lot of questions. We wanted to talk about Dead Poet Society after seeing your Twitter banner as well. And
With society,
Dead Poet, you had a quote on your Twitter banner to like ideas can change the world.
yeah.
It was from Dead Poet Society, I guess. The movie, if you haven't seen, like maybe Robin, you just know about Robin Williams.
Yeah, I just know I know about him, and I did not see the movie actually, but someone had told me this, and it kind of stuck with me.
So Robin Williams'
and so-
character say this thing in the movie, like Dead Poet Society.
Yeah, so I honestly did not see the movie, but someone had told me this, and then it stuck. Then I went, and when the thought came to put out a banner on Twitter, this was the first thing that came to mind. I said, okay, this has to somehow. I want to put this out there.
Got it.
If you want, you can ask me a couple of more questions. We have some time.
The problem is there is no
okay,
electricity here, so my laptop is going to die out soon. I'm serious surprised. Ki, like I got like this kind of quality even on my phone internet. Like maybe it was my
Jio
lucky day.
Zindabad.
It was my lucky day.
Jio Zindabad. Jio ka hai.
Thanks a lot for doing this. Thanks a lot, and
Yeah.
we would like to like have you again. Like seriously.
We have a lot of questions. Yeah.
We have a lot of questions, and seriously, whatever we talked about and everything, like even though it was not something we asked for, like even in the start, like okay, you went on the whole route, it was really good.
Thank you.